Minigames. At one point in time, these were the hubs of player activity. To wind down and have fun with your friends or complete strangers. But now, minigames feel abandoned, isolated, and, well, dead. Finding people to play these games can be challenging at times, and finding people to play them as intended can be even more challenging. The fate of minigames has been a point of discussion for years now, so let's go over some thoughts as to what we can do to these forgotten relics. What's up, everyone? This is the Destroyer 229, and welcome to the Hotspot. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing the topic of what to do with minigames. As mentioned in the intro, this topic has been the source of several discussions among players for several years now, from buffing the activities to scrapping the places altogether. While there isn't going to be a definitive right or wrong way to deal with minigames, I do think that some change is necessary, though not all minigames will require the same treatment. We'll discuss this in two parts. First, we'll go over what minigames we'll be discussing and how they ended up, for the most part, as ghost towns. Second, we'll go over the potential changes that can be done to these areas to either entice players to go to these places or make way for new content. So, how exactly did we get here? Minigames are fun little activities that players can participate in for repeatable rewards. The oldest of the minigames is the Fishing Trawler, released on July 28, 2003, and the newest being Cabbage Face Punch Bonanza, released on April 14, 2014. These activities are separate from distractions and diversions by the fact that D&Ds are time-gated, whereas minigames can be repeated as often as the player wants. Looking at the Runescape Wiki's minigame page, there are several repeatable activities it lists as minigames that probably shouldn't belong there. So, for simplicity's sake, whenever I'm referring to an activity as being a minigame, it is also an activity that can give the player Thaler. Thaler is a universal minigame currency that can be redeemed for many minigame exclusive items. Thaler is rewarded at a rate of 1 every 5 minutes, with a spotlighted minigame changing once every 3 days that makes that rate 1 every minute. But why play minigames? Well, because they're fun! Minigames were designed to be the social hubs back in the early days of RuneScape 2. And while the rewards were nice, these minigames were never designed to be long grinds. The main reward was just to have a good time. But as time went on, players started to focus more on goal-oriented tasks, be it skill capes, comp capes, final boss and insane reaper grinds, collection logs. Players were much more focused on getting certain goals accomplished and spent less time doing inefficient or even wasteful activities. There are rewards to help players, sure, but these rewards were far grindier than the item was worth, and the rewards were very quickly power crept as the game went on. One other reason people stopped coming to minigames was the abundance of social interactions online. In the mid-2000s, you didn't have many options to hang out with other people online. But today, there's an oversaturation of online spaces to meet and hang out with other people. So, minigames became less important as a social space. Now, this doesn't mean that there's no place for minigames. One look at old school would show you that minigames can still thrive today. But why is old school's minigames still active, but not RuneScape 3's? I think it boils down to two things: player goals and power creep. Old school has a wide range of player and skill levels in its player base, whereas RuneScape 3 has most of its player base at high or max levels. There's far fewer people looking to max out their stats in old school, and are more content to just have fun, which is what minigames can help provide. It's why Castle Wars is still an incredibly popular game. As for power creep, well, old school has historically not focused too much on making more powerful sets. For the longest time, Barrows was still the strongest armor set, and that wasn't challenged until raids came out. In fact, to this day, the highest tier of armor in Old School is tier 80. And due to the slower XP rates, some armor tiers are still valuable for a longer period of time. So Void Knight, for example, is still a viable grind, especially for restricted accounts, something that just doesn't exist in RuneScape 3, even among Iron Men. So how can we fix things here? Can we even fix things here? Well, let's look at some potential solutions to our minigame problem and see how effective these solutions can be. First, let's address Thaler. Thaler was introduced as an attempt to revive minigame play through a universal currency to get various minigame rewards. The problem with Thaler is that it only looked at total time played, not whether you put any effort to assist in that goal. The Thaler store also didn't introduce any items that couldn't be found in minigames. So as a result, many people just sit around in minigames and idle, making participation in games like Castle Wars annoying and Heist unplayable. So while we could look into the Thaler store or change how Thaler is rewarded to encourage more active play, I don't think this would solve the main issue. At best, it provides a band-aid that helps facilitate some play, and at worst, it does absolutely nothing. I think there are 3 solutions that can be implemented for minigames: Revamp, Remake, or Remove. Revamp would be the simplest solution, as we would need to give the area a graphical update and maybe change up some of the rewards to make playing the game more enticing. This would also add in a contribution meter, so that way players can't get by with just idling through whatever game they were playing. So, as an example, let's say that there are 3 new miscellaneous items that you can build in Fort 4 and 3, but their blueprints to make some of these items are scattered across different places in the game. One could get a blueprint called the Catapult Blueprints, that is only accessible with either gold tickets or a brand new platinum ticket, rewarded with a high enough contribution in games of Castle Wars. This catapult, when built, would provide a passive damage boost for the player when fighting Vorkath, and also increase damage when Vorkath is shot down from 10,000 damage to 15,000 damage. If introducing a new ticket type is not wise or feasible, then simply changing how tickets are rewarded to just reward participation, or just to remove idling, would be the way to help bring up engagement. Regardless, revamping would need to improve the reward store and reward players with playing the game, in order to entice more people into playing the minigame. These rewards don't necessarily need to be best in slot, but they should offer a nice bonus or a useful passive to some areas outside of the minigame. Ideally, some of these rewards should also be repeatable, as otherwise, players would just make a mad dash to all the minigames on day 1, and then the minigames just become dead again after a week or 2. Remake is our second option, but would likely require the most work to implement. These remakes would remove the minigame aspect of the area, but replace it with something with a similar or an expanded purpose. Think how the Lumberyard got converted into Fort 4 and 3 as an example. So, for instance, let's take Trouble Brewing and keep the general vibe and aesthetic, in trying to create rum, and turn it into a low-effort or AFK way to train cooking, woodcutting, and hunter. Cooking can be done through distilling the flowers and adding the colored water to the hopper. Woodcutting can be done through chopping jungle trees to maintain the boilers and depositing them in a log pile for NPCs to use. And hunter can be done through gathering sweet grubs or bitter nuts and adding them to the hopper. Sweet grubs would be the more AFK method, while bitter nuts is a more active method, with rounding up the different monkeys to get them. Many of the aspects of Trouble Brewing would be maintained, but without the competing breweries or teams needing to be present. From a lore perspective, One could say that San Fran and Fancy Dan put their differences aside and combined their operations to make the largest rum distillery in Gielinor. As far as rewards go, Pieces of 8 could still be rewarded in order to get the old rewards, but the rum they produce could be used as some form of minor healing, or even be a component for some hunter or cooking recipes. In fact, they may even serve as good bases or some secondary ingredient for future level 110 expansions in both, or at least one, of these skills. Removing is the final and least desired method. Some games might not be salvageable in any way, and may just need to be removed altogether. There is precedent for this in the past. Mobilizing armies was removed and the area was eventually turned into the Warforged dig site. And the rat pits were removed as they tended to be a buggy mess and caused a lot of issues for Jagex. While not ideal, I could at least see Cabbage Face Punch Bonanza getting the axe, as it too is a source of several glitches, and the rewards can be obtained through other methods in the game. Ultimately, I would like to not see this method be used, but it is an option if there's no way to salvage the content. So that is it for our minigame discussion. What do you think? Are there any additions to minigames you'd want to make? Are there minigames that would fit into remakes that you could see? What minigames, if you had to choose, would you just remove from the game entirely? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next episode. So, until next time everyone, take care.